B'shem Hashem, B'shem irreligious shiur. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shiur from Rabbi Yakov Smith Shalita on Dina Mezuza B'yeshiva Machnekayet Esavro Batei Mischad. Does this room require a Mezuza? Rabbi is sponsoring a shiur. Call irreligious shiur 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rav Smith.
Recently there was a problem with the Mezuza in the dorm, and the question was who's mechuyev to put up a new mezuzah in the dorm. Typically you move into the yeshiva, there's a mezuzah there, but this was a question of putting up mezuzah. Is the chiyuv on the yeshiva and the chiyuv on the bachrim? We had another interesting shaila where there was a yeshiva that went for the first month of the summer, they went to camp, and there was no mezuzahs in the entire premises, and the bachrim were very upset, and they said, no, there's no chiyuv, it's a yeshiva, it's less than 30 days. So I had enough of a impetus to decide we're going to learn the halachas of mezuzah on a beis medrash, on a yeshiva, on a camp. And I know most of you are not in camp or yeshiva any longer, but it touches upon the yisoidis of the chiyuv hilchas mezuzah in many different ways as well. But we have to clarify, the one you cite for today is, why should I think that a yeshiva, a beis medrash, a beis hakneses should be potter from mezuzah? After all, there's a chiyuv on the beis, and this a beis. This beis medrash is a beis, and a yeshiva is a beis. In fact, the pasuk we say, "Shifti beveis Hashem," or "Ani b'roiv chazach ave beisecha." So why should it be even a havamina that a yeshiva or a camp or a beis medrash is potter from mezuzah? And the emphasis in the Gemara, there's a shita that holds that a beis medrash, beis hakneses, has the same chiyuv like any other building. But today we have to learn Be'ez Hashem, the Gemara in Yuma, Daf Yiraf Mabez, a short piece of Gemara that has the entire sugya wrapped into a few lines. So the Gemara, and I quote, Beis hakneses. Now we'll soon see beis hakneses. Today is pretty rare, but a beis hakneses means a place that's only used for davening. Sheyesh ba dira lachazin. Now if you remember, throughout Shas, the word chazan does not mean a cantor. Chazan means the shamish, the one that's choizer, he's in charge of the tzarchei beis medrash. So if there's a chazan living on the premises, so then the beis hakneses is chayiv mezuzah. But if there's no chazan, there's no dira for the chazan, rameya machayiv, v'chachamim poitrin. So right away we see a beis hakneses loite chachamim, which we pass like Dr. Isvis. A beis hakneses is potter from a mezuzah if there's no one living there. Tosfos Taka points out that the halacha is like the chachamim, yochad rabbim, halach rabbim, and the beis hakneses, if no one's living there, is potter from a mezuzah. So now we have three questions that we have to clarify. Why is that so? Okay, we live with emunah, but we don't learn with emunah. We have to know why. And if it's a good reason why beis hakneses is potter, why didn't the Gemara say beis hamedrash? Is there any different beis hakneses, beis hamedrash? And the third kasha is, for some reason beis hakneses is potter. Why is dira l'chazan make it anything different? So why tak is a beis hakneses potter? So if you look at Rashi in the top of the next amud, Yud Beis Amud Aleph, Rashi says it twice, that a beis hakneses from a krachim is where there were shvakos, there were people got together. So Zok Rashi, since it's open to the public, the ein lo bailim miyuchadim. Rashi seems to be saying the chiyuv of mezuzah is one word, beisecha. You have to own it. You're a private house, you own. The kahalisha beis hakneses that's owned by the tzibur, there's no bailis. And you can't say beisecha if it's not yours. The next Rashi, in contrast to a kfarim, a beis hakneses shel kfarim is chayiv, because kol bailav nikarim, and it's like a beis of shutvis. So Rashi is definitely saying that the ptur of a beis knesses is because there's no bailam. It's owned by the kehila, the shiva tuva yair, but there's no bailas. Toisvis in our Gemara Yuma Dafir Alf Beis, Toisvis says, the Gemara says in our Gemara that a beis knesses is potter, but we know a Yishalmi, a Gemara Menacha seems to say that a beis medrash has a mezuzah. Why? So Toisvis says those batim medrashim that were privately owned, they have a chayav mezuzah. In the Yishalmi is talking about a privately owned beis medrash. That's chayav mezuzah. So Toisvis, like Rashi, is saying the fundamental chiyuv is beisecha, your house. If it's not your house, you're potter. Oy bazoi, we understand two things. If it's a beis knesses shel yachid, privately owned, it's his. We'll soon see a shtibel or a beis medrash with a tanai. But we also understand why a chazan living there is enough to mechayiv, because now it's a he's living there, and it's his bailus. Either he rented it or he bought it, whatever it is. And this is reason number one based on Rashi, that the reason why beis knesses is potter because there's no bailus. Now I do know that Dvar Avram in Aleph Lamed Zayin is Anav Beis. He says that's not maskana. It's only in the Havamina Ayin Sham. The Shilas David also seem to say it's not a maskana, but most poskim seem to assume that this is the first reason why a beis knesses is potter. And again, once you know the reason, we'll go through all the different shilas. But then we have a few words of the Rambam. Kedarkei, the Rambam, every word of his is precious. The Rambam in Hilchos Mezuzah, Perek Vav Halacha Vav, Harabayis, listen to the company that the beis knesses is in. Harabayis, Halishkois, Vazarois, they're all potter from a mezuzah. Then Zok the Rambam, Ubeis knesses, but the Knesiyas, but the medrashos are also potter. Why? And what's the shaykhis beis knesses to the lishka, the azara of the beis hamikdash? Zok the Rambam, kiven, why they potter? Lefi shehein kodesh, because they're kodesh. And as the Mefarshim point out, the Rambam is based on our Gemara. The Rambam says that lishkais, azorais, are potter from a mezuzah. Why they potter? So the Gemara, yatsu elu shehem kodesh. Now the emes is, it's a little strange. So what? If it's kodesh, I mean, is there a problem of too much kedusha, like a maximized? Is that koirach's taina? Basic knesset that talish kulet chelas? Like what's the pshat? Zokti and bemis the shiltis in Simon Kuf Mem Hey also says, but the Knesiyas u'medrashes are paturim the ikri migdash shenem hashimoishi as migdashechem. Now what's going on here? Because it's too much kedusha. Was something wrong with that? So here you have a very important chasam soifa in the Tshuvas Yeridei Simon Reish Pei Aleph. Someone asked the chasam soifa that the Gemara says kodesh, but it also says beisecha. What's the real reason? Beisecha or kodesh? And then someone asked chasam soifa, a real typical chasam soifa zakasha. Frag this person, the chasam soifa, the chiyuv of mezuzah is the deraisa, but the kedushas beis knesses is only the rabbanon. How could a rabbanon be doicha deraisa? So the chasam soifa, only the chasam soifa could say this. The patur of a beis knesses is because the chiyuv is beisecha, your bias. Zok chasam soifa, but a loy v'diras gevoya Hashem Elokei Yisrael v'shoich hashoichen b'soicha v'chol she'ashchin shruya b'soicha v'loy hedyet k'goyim beis knesses that the Gemara says in Megillah, I'm going to be in your beis knesses v'oilam leizaza mehem shchina turim min ha-mezuzah. So the chasam soifa, with his heilige eyes, was able to see when you look at a beis knesses, it's not a regular bias. It's the Bernstein's bias. If we had the eyes, we would see and the beis medrash in the top, Hashem's house. Okay, you call the beis knesses azoi, but zok chasam soifa, this is the mishkan. He calls it. It's the mishkan of the gvoya. So the p'tur is not because it has kedusha. The Ptur is because it's not a beisecha, it's the Bershlam's house. It's a beis gevoya, diras gevoya, Hashem Elokei Yisrael, that the Shechina Shuya ba. Rav Zotake added, it's not because of Kedusha, but it's the identity, this is the Beis Hashem. So fakir, Shifti bebeis Hashem is why it's Potter. It's not your house, it's the Bershlam's house. The Chashulchan, and now with Simon today, everything is Reish Pei Vav, adds a few words, that the Maisa you Potter Mezuza, because it's Migdash Ma'at, and it's not your bias. So now we have the Rambam's reason, the second reason. It's not your bias, again, Beisecha. And then there's one more reason. And that's the Lavush, and our Simon Siv Gimel. The Lavush says, probably a big Chiddush, but Zok the Lavush, Beis HaKnesses Potter Mezuza, She'ena Asuy L'dira, it's not made for normal living. B'stam Beisecha, Beis Dira Mashma, Oy Bayish and Mishtam Shemshom, Min Adava Shetzorach Loi, Our Beis HaKnesses Eina Asuya Ela L'Spalel. So what's he saying? He's saying very pashut. The Torah, the Rebbeinu gave us a mitzvah to put a mezuzah on a house. A house means normal living, physical gashmius living. You eat, you sleep. The chiyuv mezuzah on beisecha. Davening is much more important than all the gashmius in the world. But davening is not your tzarchei choyel. It's not your tzarchei haguf. Again, it's a chiddush, but he's also learning in the beisecha. The chiyuv of mezuzah is in the bias that you live normal living. Ruchnius is more important, but it's not the chiyuv mezuzah. Oy bazoy, again we understand that when the chazan lives there, there's a chiyuv because that's normal living. And if you look at the Shach, Chayoda, Meklal Tezvov, Diaraktana, and Beis Vov, they all quote this lavush. It's very easy to understand. If Beisecha means where you live one place, you daven a different place. But the davening is not living. So the Chazrov, we have Rashi and Taisa says it's not a bailis. Rambam says it's the Beis Hashem, and the lavush says it has to be normal, regular living. Now, Lamaisa, they're all true. It's not a steer necessarily. It's from different angles. But what's interesting is, besides the Gemara in Yuma that a basic Knesset is Pata, there's the Gemara in Brachas Mem Zayin in a totally different context. The Gemara is talking about when you're going by Derech, Ein Mechabnim B'derachim. Why? The Gemara says because there's no Mezuza B'derech. Whenever there's no Mezuza, there's no Chi of Kibud. Really? Is that true? Ela Miata, Beis HaKnesses, listen closely, U Beis HaMedrash, the Lesbu Mezuza, Hochinami de Ein Mechabdim. So what's the Gemara saying, Agav? That when there's no mezuzah, you're potter, yeah. But what did the Gemara give an example? Two examples. Knesses and Beis HaMedrash. Unlike Yuma that says only Beis HaKnesses, and we could be medayik maybe, Beis HaMedrash Chayiv, this is clear as day, it's both. And this is why, since there's two Gemaras, the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Pei Vav Siv Gimel, Beis HaKnesses is potter unless the Chazan's living there. It's based on two Gemaras. I will soon get back to the Beis HaMedrash. But Rabbi say today it's rare to have a Beis HaKnesses. A Beis HaKnesses was a place exclusively for davening. Rav Vosno used to explain, like he remembers when he was growing up in Chutz La'aretz, after Ma'ariv, the Gabbai, the Shamash waited till everybody left, he locked up the door, till tomorrow morning it's off limits. Shachris he closed it, Mincha Ma'ariv was together, but it was only for davening. Reb Shlomo Zalman used to say, well, you see this in the Ir Atika, in the Churva Beis HaKnesses, never had a mezuzah. Why not? It was a Beis HaKnesses. I was thinking, now in neighborhoods, even though there's probably two shuls on every block, but there's not a Beis HaKnesses. Bnei Yehuda, Shomer Emunah, Bethel, Veen, maybe there's more, but those that I know of. In Flatbush, I know Reb David Cohen's Beis Medrash has upstairs Beis HaKnesses, but Washington Heights obviously has its old minig, but it's kemat rare to find a place only for davening. Now the Sefer Ogab Alecha in the beginning of Perek Vav Gimel says a real Beis HaKnesses, there's no inyan to put a mezuzah. It's potter. I mean, not that you don't have to. There's no chiyuv. It's not a ma'aser mezuzah. And he brings a raya ayin sham, but the poiskim and more or less the halachic poskim especially all add that since today's Bate Knesiyas there is learning going on between Mincha Ma'ariv and there's a shiur after Ma'ariv. So again, the halachic poskim say the minig is in some Bate Knesiyas they do put up a mezuzah. But let me tell you, if you see a place like in the Washington Heights Kehillah and other places there's no mezuzah, it's 100% correct. If there's no learning, if it's only a makam for tefillah, there's definitely no chiyuv of mezuzah. Now, the question I saw, and brings out the point a lot clearer. We know a mezuzah is lav dafka in the house that you're living, that you're eating, you're sleeping. A beis oitza, a beis teven. Today we'll call it a storage, a garage, a warehouse. No one lives there. There's no steam. But storage is chayiv. So Pshtai Zalman Alicha Shloim Beperik Yutes Siv Ches asks a very interesting question. Ein Chanami, the beis Knesses is potter mitzad the beis Knesses, but maybe it's like a beis oitza. It keeps the chairs and the tables and whatever you keep there. So his teretz is also very poshut. A beis oitza for a beis Knesses is like the beis Knesses. So it's bottle. And if the beis Knesses is potter, so too is the beis oitza shebot. Someone else asked the question, also I think I saw one of the halachic poskim asked this, when you have a chazan, he puts a mezuzah on his door. Maybe you should put a mezuzah on the front of the beis Knesses because it's like a entrance into the base of the chazan. We know there's something called the beis shar. A room leads to the other one, you chayim mezuzah. The teretz, he says pretty bluntly, is you're making the beis Knesses like an entrance into your house. You can't make a kampanja out of a beis Knesses, but you're making it a beis shar? Unthinkable. Okay. So this is basically beis Knesses. The next question, which is probably more negeya, is beis medrash. Is a beis medrash, this halachic beis medrash is one example, is this an any beis medrash chayiv and a mezuzah? So the emes is that it's negeya today to bet medrashim and yeshivas. So you might say beis Knesses, since it's only for davening and davening is not that long, it's takapot. Beis medrash, hopefully with their Yom V'Layla, especially in yeshiva. But even today, Baruch Hashem, working people are learning hours in the morning and hours at night. Maybe we'll say that the Beis HaMedrash is more v'chid than Beis HaKnesses. And the Emes Gemara Megillah, Daf Chav Chesem Beis, calls a Beis HaMedrash a Bei Rabbanon. And as the Shach words it in Sivkot and Yotes, that a Beis HaMedrash sheyoyshim boy mi'aboyka ado erev doimo ledira. So there's definitely a makom to say a beis medrash is takachayiv, and maybe we could even add the Gemara in Yuma, the makar of the Ptur says beis Knesses. Maybe it's a diik beis medrash is chayiv, and maybe we could also say for us ibayis ema kra ibayis ema svar. First of all, we said the Gemara in bracha says beferish elamiyata beis Knesses u beis medrash. There's no mezuzah. The shiltis that I mentioned said bate Knesiyas u medrashais apata. You'll ask me, but Tosfos that I mentioned in the end of Yud and Beis and Yuma quotes both Rishalmi and the Gemara Menachos that bate madrashim are chayiv and a mezuzah. Teretz says true, but Tosfos explained. You know why they're chayiv? Because it's private. Tosfos says beferish. So now we could say ibayis ein makra, a beis medrash is pata. Ibayis ein masvara is even more easy to understand. Think about the reasons. Let's say you have a typical yeshiva beis medrash that's owned by the kehillah. I'm not talking about it. We'll get soon to a private beis medrash, but let's say a regular kaholish beis medrash. So the same Torah beis echad, it's not yours. The Rambam's reason is certainly applied. Forget beis medrash has more kedusha than beis Knesses, so it's certainly beis Hashem. The Levush's reason also applies to beis medrash. You only learn there. And then there's also a remarkable tshuva, a noteworthy tshuva, I should say. The Maram Rutenberg in Tfus Krim Noina, Siman Kuf Ches, quoted for a number of points, but it seems in times of Maram Rutenberg, there was a prevalent custom, it's not minik, it was wrong minik, that people put a mezuzah on the front door only. So he bemoans that fact, and he says, Lamaisa, I have to give Musa, because if people know what a mezuzah is, how important it is, they wouldn't be over on not putting up mezuzah. And then he says, don't think it's just one. In fact, in my house, Bayis Shalom, listen to Lashon, so Virani, I think that we have 24 mezuzahs. Now he didn't have a mansion, trust me. Let me explain. He said, I made a mezuzah in the beis medrash in my house, and also beis chorev, and I gave rooms to the bachrim. I guess he had a dormitory also. Kol bacha v'bacha got a room. So he concludes, and therefore every room needs a mezuzah. Now, what we do see, he made a mezuzah on his beis medrash. Oh, so maybe this is a raya. Beis medrash needs a mezuzah, but it's rather not convincing. This is a private beis medrash. He had it in his house, so therefore it's not really a raya. But Lamaisa, the Torah adds an important point. The Torah in Reish Pei Vav Ois Yud, and this is also in the Rosh and Lachas Ketanas Mezuza Siman Yud back of Masechta Menachos. They both give a little history. Why Taka did the Ram Rutenberg put a mezuzah on his beis medrash? So he says originally he didn't put a mezuzah on his beis medrash, but what happened was when he was sleeping, I guess he slept in the beis medrash, he was bothered or attacked by ruchais rois. So he realized it's time to put up mezuzah. So he put it up really because he got a message from Shemayim. You need a mezuzah. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky in the Sefer Das Noita was asked this. Somebody asked him in Kuf Samach Vav. He put it up because he wanted shmira. The Torah in the end of Reish Pei Hey says you know how to put up mezuzah to get shmira. The mezuzah is for the mitzvah. So Rabbi Chaim, he didn't put it up because of shmira. He put it up because he got a message that he said, "First time I get the hint." He got a directive. You better put a mezuzah. So the Maisa we see that the beis medrash is far from pashut. The base we mentioned earlier, Gemara Menachos is mashma that there is a chiyuv. Maybe some say it's only because it's a yachid. So it's definitely very not pashut. But listen to the way the Beis Yosef paskins. Zok the Beis Yosef, there's a Tosfos, there's a Rosh, and there's a other shittas. Nachain lahatzrich mezuzah lebeis hamedrash kirei lekim yeitze es kulam. That's the last pasuk in Kehelis. The kolshkein bedava she'ein by chasarin kis harbe. Put up mezuzah. Aval lo yivarech al kfiyusay. So the Beis Yosef, because he found such an uncertainty, paskin you need a mezuzah, but no bracha. Now it's interesting. People say today, but mezuzah is so expensive. Maybe it doesn't apply. So I say one thing. I'm not going to ask you how much you paid for your house, but people are paying 1.4, 1.5 million, right? How much do you spend renovating? There's nothing left. I can't afford it. First, buy the mezuzahs, and then you can renovate. Tzorchei mitzvah go first. But anyhow, Lamaisa, it's a drop in the bucket for the 1 point, whatever you pay for the house. But be that as it may, the Beis Yosef is really saying, Beis Medrash is pata. But you could do it, why not do it? And that's the way you see from the Shulchan Aruch. In Sif Yud, of Reish Pei Vav, Beis Medrash, pata men ha-mezuzah, v'yesh oimrim, the honorable mention, shem ha-chayiv, v'nochin lochish l'devreyim, avalo yivarech. So definitely the Mechaba is paskening its pata, but the minig is to put it up below mezuzah. Zok the what? No, below bracha, right. We'll soon see that's very challenging when you have a kriyas mezuzah in the yeshiva beis medrash. Why are you making a bracha? We'll get to that soon. But the Shach explains because it's there yoimam v'layla. It's there miboika ad erev. So to apply this more lamaisa, if you would see a beis medrash even without a mezuzah, you can't be critical of that. Then it's pata. Avada, it's a good idea to have it. But varaya that you pata, there's no bracha. The Shach does say the following: since you're putting up mezuzah, try to get a bracha from somewhere else. L'mashal, we'll soon see. Some parts of a beis medrash is chayiv on a mezuzah. Let's say the Rav has a study, the Rav has an office, or the Rebbe has an office. So that's a private room. That's very similar to the Chazan. So you make a bracha on the Rav's study, and like go from room to room and put up a mezuzah. We do that on Erev Pesach. We make a bracha b'dikas chametz on one house, then we go to the garage, and if you go to your workplace, the Shach says, according to Bach, since the Maisa, some hold you chayv in a beis medrash, try to get a bracha from a legitimate chiyuv. We do that with tefillas kelim. You have a suffix tefillah, make a bracha on what's definitely chayiv, and that part is everything else. Another point, making it more practical, is again, you make a bracha, have in mind both rooms, and don't talk out in between room to room. Granted, this somehow can't be to expand the beis medrash, almost doubled it, and the dining room. And then there was a kviyas mezuzah, obviously, there's many new doors. So he said, this eitzah, you make a bracha on the dining room, that's vadei chiyuv, we'll soon see. And then, without talking, go and put up mezuzahs in the beis medrash. Now, of course, people say, what? Beis medrash is heilig. Exactly. Because it's heilig, there's no bracha. So you make a bracha on the dining room and go without talking to the beis medrash and make the brachas there. And put up the kviyas and mezuzah there. Now, lamaisa, the poskim say, although not every beis medrash is miboikad erev. I mean, Baruch Hashem is learning before davening, after Ma'ariv, but in the day there's a pretty big gap. But lamaisa doesn't make a chiluk. As long as it's miyuchid for shimush, it's open for shimush. Doesn't have to be a day and night or even the whole day. A beis medrash is one that's more than a beis knesses, even if it's not many more hours than a beis knesses, has the same halachas of a beis knesses. A beis medrash, I'm sorry. Now today, especially in the newer neighborhoods that you can't build shuls because of zoning laws, many shuls are in someone's basement. So he has a regular basement and he makes a beis medrash out of it. So that would be more similar to beis medrash of a yachid, that according to Tosfos, taka more of a chiyuv. But let's realize one thing. The reason of yachid, only one of the three reasons. The Rambam's reason applies in a private beis medrash. L'maisa, it's only for davening. The Levush's reason applies. So therefore, the basement, what we call the basement minyanim, really should have a mezuzah below bracha. Because it's not like a private beis medrash, or maybe it is, but it's only one of the reasons. But more importantly, we should add, for those that have only a Shabbos minyan, because during the week people could drive to shul, but in the newer neighborhoods they have no shul and there's no foreseeable eitzah, they have minyanim in people's basements. But the rest of the week, it's a private basement. That taka will be much more of a svara to say yechayev, because that's a dira probably the whole week, except for the davening hours. So the word private has to be applied properly. The next question, which is not a new phenomenon, the Divrei Chaim in his tshuvas in Chosh Mishpach Chelik Beis Simon Lamed Beis, he writes the fact that people, that Gedolei Olam Tzadikim made chasanas in shuls. You can't make a chasan in shul. So this is famous, the Divrei Chaim's tshuva, that they mayachid it to be a place to get together for achdus, for avos Yisrael, to eat together. And they also daven. But Lamaisa, the beis medrash, is really more accurately called a shtibel. Shtibel is a shtub, a house. And his lashon is, it was made b'tanai, that you could do what you want. Someone told me he was there when Shlomo Bava built the big beis medrash here. And he said he's meyachid it for a beis for Chassidim, to come together, achdus, eating together. Because that's really what his Eltazei, the Divrei Chaim, said, that's what a beis medrash is. It should be a place of achdus. So, Lamaisa, this, if you realize, this is a much bigger heta than a beis medrash of a yachid. If you tell me you built it with Tanai, it's a shtibel, it's a house, so that has an impact on Hilchos Mezuzah. More than a beis medrash a yachid, because this is not a beis medrash. And that's why it's reasonable to assume that on this shtibel, even if it's a big, huge shtibel, you could even make a bracha. It's my house. You want to come daven there? Okay. We're going to eat together. We're going to have chasanas, sheva brachas, and we'll daven. Lamaisa, I looked into this. Taka some say, and if indeed it's made to be a beis dira, why not put up with bracha? What I did see in the beis Levi, that's the Menhagim, Psakim of Rav Wozner, he was asked the question, when the Shuas Moshe, the Vision Rebbe, built his big beis medrash in Bnei Brak. So he wanted to make a bracha on the front door because he made it into a shtibel. So Vaza was not happy. He says, you know what, make the bracha on your private room, office, and then you part to the beis medrash. Maybe he felt that Lamaisa, it's davening there, and it's mostly davening, but this, again, the beis medrash Yachid is much more of a reason to say it's chayiv than a shtibel. A shtibel means it's my house. It's like someone that he donates his dining room to daven Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos. But still, it's still a dining room. So the Rechaim's Hamtzah was to make a very big, huge shtibel, even though you daven there a few times a day. Look what's doing today in the beis medrash in Bobov today. Thousands of people daven on a daily basis, but that was his prerogative. So certainly that is more of a tzad to hold his mezuzah. I did see Rav Chaim Kanievsky in Das Noit on Kuf Samachtes. Somebody asked about this question. He goes, Chasidim oimim shabeis knesset shalhem nahagu lechol mikomokim kashel levarich. He was skeptical if you could even make a bracha to go to that extent, like Rav Osner's assumption as well. The Rav's office, or secretary's office, makes no difference, would be enough that you can make a bracha on that office. Because although it's not at night, they don't sleep there, but we hope to do in a different shiur that this conception is a misconception. The chiyuv mezuzah is lav dafka when you sleep there. The Rai we paskin on a store, on a business, when no one sleeps, is a chiyuv mezuzah. So it's reasonable that if someone has a private office, whether it's the Rav or the secretary, makes no difference, that's theirs, that room is chayiv and mezuzah. And that would be an eitzah to make a bracha on that. Now the emphasis of the Chanukas Abayis Taka has to be done right, even though it's a fundraiser, making a lot of money, and it's important, but you have to do it right. You have to find the bracha to be said on a room that's chayiv on a mezuzah. Now the emphasis is you can make a bracha even on the Rav's study, and the rest of the room is no bracha, because the ikk is not the bracha, the ikk is the pictures, don't forget. That's the real kibbutz, and that's what it's all about. So the fundraiser would suffice with the bracha on one room, and you could travel from room to room. The washing room, typically every shul has a washing room, so the washing room that connects to the beis hakisei, that some say is potter. It's like sort of like a beis shar into the beis hakisei. But today there are many batei medrashos that have, especially big ones, that have a room with sinks just for washing. So in a certain sense, that might be more of a chiyuv than the beis medrash, because the beis medrash is learning and davening. This is washing. This is like washing. Maybe it's like tzorchei hedget. And Takasam say that a washroom would be chayiv and a mezuzah. Rabbi Yashiv is quoted in his Talmud Seif Yisu Yosef Yerdei Simon and Vav that he was noita that you make a bracha even when you put on the mezuzah going into the washroom. Many poskim feel that the washing is part of the davening. You're not taking a shower there. It's washing for tefillah. So it's bottled to the Torah of a beis haknesses, beis hamedrash. So the Maisa, again, this is, I can't say it's a vadai, but if you understand, if the room has the right dimension, daled al daled, it might even be chayiv more than the beis hamedrash. A very common room today in every shul is a coffee room. Sometimes it has more population than the beis medrash, but it doesn't have the kedusha. This is real. Tzorchei hedget, zachila, shtia. So loimi boy, the Rambam's reason and the Levush's reason certainly don't apply. This is not the Beis Hashem, the coffee room. This is not where you're doing your davening. You're eating and drinking. The only question is if it's taka a kaholish Beis Hamedrash. So there's no ownership in this coffee room. But I did see a number of poskim say that since you have this uncertainty, number one, maybe it doesn't belong to anybody specifically. So we have Rashi's reason. And number two, some say, Lamaisa, it does give koyach for the davening, you're not eating breakfast, it's part of like the achana for davening. So the coffee room would be chayiv and a mezuzah, but probably it's best believe bracha. Again, you can't lose by not making a bracha when you have a suffix. Now, the only issue you have to know is if the room is less than daled al daled. Now, typically, the coffee room is a small room, and most of the room is parts of the attached to the wall, like the cabinets and the sink. If there's no open space of daled al daled, that might be another reason to part from a mezuzah, because it's missing the minimum amount of $1, 6 feet by 6 feet. But here, as we know, there's a Chamuda Daniel, the Pesach Tshuva and Reish Pei Vav, Yud quotes it, who says a beautiful yisoid. When is a $1 potter? When the room is supposed to be bigger, but you made it small, so it's not a functional room. So Chamuda Daniel, if you have a room that you see, you know, it's a very important room, it's used all the time. So just because it's less than $1 is not a ptur. The less than $1 is a simon, not a siba. It's probably not a good room. But if you have a room that you use and it's less than $1, Zok Chamuda Daniel, you're chayiv on a mezuzah. So Loit Chamuda Daniel, and that the Evan Yisrael in Chelik Zayin, Simon Lamdal, so that's the minig in Yishalayim. You should put a mezuzah on a coffee room, even less than $1. Now, I'll give you something to think when you get home, a little homework. Rabbi Kiva Eiga also discusses a room less than $1. And he says, less than $1 is not chayiv, forget it. But first go into the coffee room, measure it, it's not less than $1, no chayiv. But now, when you walk out of the coffee room, into the beis medrash, or into any room for that matter, so maybe the coffee room is chayiv and mezuzah, because it's going into the next room. According to Rabbi Kiva Eiga, where do you put the mezuzah? The right side going in, or the right side going out? Obviously, the right side going out is really going into the room where you're chayiv. So here, you can't answer beis chasanis. You want to say it like Rabbi Kiva Eiga, and the Vaza says in Chelik beis, Kufman beis, that's the minig in Bnei Brak, like Rabbi Kiva Eiga, we put it going out of the coffee room into the next room. Minig Yishalayim is like the Chamuda Daniel. What's the minig in Brooklyn? You tell me, get back to me on that one. But Hamais, you can think about it. If you have a suffix, any of a coffee room is chayiv, maybe it's another suffix, because some agree to the Chamuda Daniel, some don't, some agree to Kiva Eiga, and some don't. So it's something to ask a shaila, but it's really, you can't satisfy both opinions, and don't put up two mezuzahs, that's for sure. Now, Lamaisa, again, it's today, a lot of is pashut, people look strange, where's the mezuzah? So you put it up, but you have to know, if it's less than $1, find out which way to put it. A very interesting question, which is rather better than it seems, is an ezes noshim. A typical ezes noshim that's not used during the week should be less than a beis medrash, maybe less than a beis knesses. Don't forget, it's not a beis medrash, it's not a coffee room, it's not a washing room, it's a place women daven. But then again, it's not miboikad erev. And Lamaisa, the Chutshani wants to say, ezes nashim, kiven she'ein lo shimushin shel diurin, but potem in a mezuzah. He's saying it's a beis knesses, and there's no shiurim going on. It's used on Shabbos and Yom Tiv, so it's less than even the basic ness of today that we put a mezuzah b'lay bracha. It's a regular, half-used basic nesses. That's all it is. Lamaisa, again, it's a t'mur l'rabim. Women might feel like, why, we're not important. So the minig is you definitely put up mezuzah, but no doubt about it, a bracha should not be said on the ezes nashim. Now, today, especially in Lakewood, where there's so many yeshivas, many ezes nashim are rented during the week for a yeshiva, for a koilel. No, if it's a koilel yeshiva, avad yechayiv, like a beis medrash. But basically, the ezes nashim is like the old-fashioned beis knesses with limited usage, only for the week Shabbos and Yom Tiv days. A simcha hall that today shuls have at Pasha to bring in, to generate an income. I'm not talking about those that have a dining room that's also used as a simcha, like in Chinka or Teres Chaya. I'm talking about something that's only used by the caterer, not by the yeshiva. And if it's used by the yeshiva, we'll soon see it's a regular dining room. I'm talking about it's only used for a caterer, for an affair. So you might break it up, and you might come to the conclusion that there's no chayiv mezuzah. Why? The caterer is not living there, he's not eating there, he's in and out, he has workers, and he's gone. So it's hard to say he's chayiv. The Baal Simcha rents it for one night. It's much less than 30 days. So how's he chayiv? But Lamaisa, as we will once speak, is a whole different share about the business and hilchas mezuzah, if someone has work is there a good part of the day or night or both, so it's not worse than a store. You don't have to be there, but it's something that it's your beis because you rent it and you're there many hours, or your work's there many hours. Avodah is a chiyuv. So avodah is no chiyuv on the Bal Simcha. The chiyuv is on the one, and not on the beis medrash. If they rent it, chiyuv is kanya. The chiyuv is on the caterer who's there every day, and the fact that every day is a different simcha does not impact hilchas mezuzah in any way. The next group of questions is also fascinating in a certain sense because it touches upon a very delicate issue, and that is a yeshiva. Let's talk about a beis medrash of a yeshiva. Now again, Baruch Hashem, the learning of Baal Batim is incredible, many hours, but in yeshiva it's supposed to be yoyim v'layla. So the shaila is, does that make more of a chiyuv on a yeshiva or less of a chiyuv, where it's there yoyim v'layla? So l'maisa, we have to know it's negayah to a beis medrash, a dining room, a shiur room, a classroom. So let's go slowly. First of all, l'maisa in the beis medrash itself, which is more than the shach's boycott erev, avad is chayiv. It's not chayiv enough with certainty to say you have to make a bracha, because a beis medrash of a yeshiva is beis Hashem, the Rambam's reason. We have the Levush's reason, it's learning. So you can't say it's so much of a chiyuv, you make a bracha on it, because the two main reasons why there's no chiyuv apply to a beis medrash. So even though we have the shach svara of boycott erev much more, but a beis medrash is not chayiv with a bracha. Imagine the people that day and night, it's not chayiv with a bracha. And that's the Chayr Pashit because it has the two reasons of the Rambam and the Levush. Now, this is basically talking about the actual beis medrash itself. How about the dining room? So the dining room is 3 times a day, if older boys, and there's regular achila, and it's not beis Hashem, and if there's a private owner, certainly, dining room would be a good candidate to make a bracha. The Rambam's reason doesn't apply, Levush's reason doesn't apply, and Yachid is a shaila if it's a Yachid, and also maybe some hold that that's not enough of a Torah, the fact that it's not Beisecha. So basically, I saw many Paiskim, Heintige Paiskim saying that a yeshiva's dining room, especially of older boys that are there, breakfast, lunch, and supper, is chayiv with a bracha. So it's ironic, you can have a yeshiva, beis medrash, no bracha. Dining room, that's where the bracha is said. A shiur room or a classroom, so some yeshivas only use it like an older bachim, there's a shiur room, an hour a day. So that's not so much of a chiyuv as a beis medrash. A classroom of younger boys, that the boys spend there the whole day, I mean, they're in a classroom, just the younger grades, so that's something like a, hopefully close to boycott erev. But there's another svar that the Paiskim say, and the Stipler mentioned this also, that the fact is that the classrooms, whether it's boys or girls, no difference, they're there from 9 till 3, whatever the time is, but they leave their books there, they leave their stuff there, they leave their sweaters there. So it could be it's more of an extended use. So at least we could say that it's like boika ad erev, and it's chayiv at least below bracha. So a boys' school that has boys learning in the classroom should have a mezuzah. Girls' school, okay, I know they're not mechuyev in real learning, but the learning that they are learning, they're allowed to do, would be the same halacha. A classroom only for limudei chayil. I know Rabbi when he built the yeshiva, he wanted very much to make only one classroom for the Kodesh and Chayil. But there was a lot of expansion in the enrollment, didn't work out. But definitely to have that, a classroom only for Limudei Chayil, is Vadei Chayiv, with a bracha. It has, again, it's not the Rambam, it's not the Levush, it's a real Davar Shel Chayil. So you have to know about the bias of it, but no doubt about it, a Limudei Chayil is definitely chayiv, and presumably could even be with a bracha. Leidach gis, a play group, where basically is young children, where there's no learning. So you don't have the Rambam's reason, you don't have Levush's reason, and maybe it would be something similar to that Limudei Chayil. and therefore there would be a chiyuv mezuzah. The children are lo yigil lechinuch, they're so young, true, but the chiyuv is not on the children, the chiyuv is on Hala, whoever's the moisid. So a playgroup or a private playgroup should have a mezuzah, and it's even yitachon, you should know that there's a chiyuv bracha. Because just like in your house, you have a baby room that only babies sleep in, but it's chayiv a mezuzah. Because if you have a baby in your house, you have to put up mezuzah. So here the shaila is, if it's a privately owned moisid, or privately owned baby room, a play group, so it's the owner of the house that's taking in children for a play group. So it's their personal needs being filled with this job. So that would even be chayiv with the mezuzah. Lamaisa, the Stipler's second svar I told you, he writes this in the Kilos Yakov in the Chadoshim Menachay Simen Chav Beis. This second svara, that the fact they leave chafetzim there, that makes it more of an extended use. So that would be a svara to be mechayiv. What's not discussed, understandably, in earlier poskim is the question of a gym. Now today many yeshivas have gyms, so lamaisa I hope it's not yomam v'layla, but it's pretty often that it's populated. So lamaisa, believe it or not, a gym should be chayiv and mezuzah with a bracha. It's not a question of something that it's like a lack of tznius. I mean, brachim play like yeshiva brachim play. There's no problem of nekiyos, hopefully, but a beis hakisi is potter. But I saw the poskim all agree a private indoor pool should have a mezuzah. Because people are dressed appropriately for swimming, but it's not a question where there's lack of tznius. So if an indoor pool is chayiv and a mezuzah, a gym certainly should be chayiv and a mezuzah. And I saw one of the halachic poskim says beferish that you could it is no ptur because it's not a beis hakavod, because okay it's not learning, but it's not something that's inappropriate, not like a beis of animals. So if it's a full chiyuv, it would be something interesting. You have a yeshiva, you want to make a big chenukas habayis, you make the bracha on the gym, but it's not going to happen too soon. But at least in theory we could say that Lamaisa, the gym should have a mezuzah. Now, if you really feel uncomfortable, there might be an eitzah, because on some rooms they have a wide doorpost. Let's say this would be the wide doorpost, and the door divides the doorpost in half. So you can either put a mezuzah on the doorpost that's in the room, or on the doorpost that's out of the room. Like a typical room has a door that fills the entire doorpost. But if you have a wide doorpost and the door's in the middle, you have a choice where to put the mezuzah. When you first walk in, when you see it on the outside of a room or inside. So in parents' bedrooms, we put the mezuzah dafka outside, al tznius. So if you really feel uncomfortable, put the mezuzah in the inside of the gym, put it outside. Bali pata, bali klum does not seem to be the right thing, because the ma'isa, it's chayiv and a mezuzah. A very sensitive, delicate issue, because it's really the yisoid, and you have to not apply it, is the question of a dormitory, whether it's in yeshiva or seminary, there's no difference. But basically, the question is, what is the status of a dormitory? So no doubt about it, a dormitory is real dira. I mean, that's sleeping and living. It's not the beis Hashem type of dira. It's, again, our needs. Although it's called the checha de'eyu, but it's still not a beis Hashem. So no doubt about it, the Rambam's reason doesn't apply, Levush's reason doesn't apply, but maybe there's even more to that. Because here's the question. If there is a chiyuv, who has the chiyuv on the mezuzah? Let's say we had the shayla, the bacha felt the mezuzah nakasha, he wanted a new mezuzah. So he went to the building manager, you want a new mezuzah? Fine, buy one. Because it's your chiyuv. No, it's your chiyuv. Who's chayiv the mezuzah in a dormitory of a yeshiva or a seminary? So you might say, wait a minute. We said chayvas hador, it has to be beisecha. The bacha doesn't own the dormitory. I mean, they think they have shtickle bailis, but they don't own it. So how could it be his chiyuv? But then again, we know that a soicha, a tenant, is mechuyev in a mezuzah after 30 days, but he's mechuyev in a mezuzah. You don't own it. Teretz is money talks. You pay rent, schir is kanya. So maybe we'll advance the following theory, that since he pays tuition and he pays a special fee for dormitory, maybe it's like he rented his dormitory room. So then it's beisecha, schiris kanya. Or maybe you'll say, that's unreasonable. He has a bailus, the yeshiva wants to give someone a bailus in the room. So Lamaisa, it's hard to accept that he's a regular tenant. Plus the yeshiva doesn't give him any tenant status. If they want to move him from room to room, whatever reason is, they could. If they want to move him out permanently, they could also do that. But it's a funny thing. How do you touch up the dormitory and a bracha? What's the relationship? So the emphasis is, you think a little more. A hotel. The tenant, the one that's there for the night, Zichan HaChayiv, is the owner of the hotel Chayiv? Why is he Chayiv? He doesn't live there. It's the people living there only want less than a day or two. But then again, if you have in your house, if you decide to take your niece or nephew that has no place to stay, they're staying in yeshiva or a seminary, there's no dormitory, they're staying by you till Pesach. So you give them a room, a private room, everything, but they're not Chayim Mezuzah. They're living in your house. It's like your bnei bayis. So, how do you look at a dormitory? I'll give you another parallel, perhaps, and I don't be funny. Some consider a yeshiva like a beis cholim. Not that boys are sick, but let's say you have a cholim that's there for at least 90 days. So, it's not Chayim Mezuzah. Because he doesn't have a specific bailus on this bed, on this room. Maybe yeshivas like that as well. So, to make a long story short, the Chayvas Hadar, Bianca Lebloy, from the first I wrote on Mezuzah, he says what he thinks that the chiyuv of a dormitory is on the yeshiva. The Talmidim are b'nei beisai. They're like his guests, maybe more of a permanent guest, but that's the chiyuv on the hanhola of the yeshiva. The Chelkas Binyamin in Reish Peivav, Sifkat and Reish Yud Zayin also says this. The bigger chiddush, the Ber Moshe, the Betzina Rav Chelik Gimel Kuf Pei, he was very emphatic that he believes, no doubt about it, the Anhosa Yeshiva not only is chayav but can make a bracha. Even though the boys are sleeping there for all those months, it's the chayav on the Anhosa Yeshiva, whoever is in charge of that particular dormitory, whatever it may be. Now, Lamaisa, we could add the chayra, a raya from Amaram. Aram said he put up mezuzah, Maramberg put up mezuzahs, chayda kol bachu bacha. But it's not a raya. Because that taka was like a real guest. They were guests in his house. He had a private yeshiva, private beis medrash, that's pashit. But I'm talking about a big yeshiva. The fact is, even that, the Ber Moshe is convinced that a bracha couldn't be said by an holos ha-yeshiva. Now, Lamaisa, there are those that hold that it can't be on the yeshiva, they don't live there, they're not part of that bias. It's much more mustava, says the Ogor Ba'alecha Amud Shin Mem Zayin, that the chiyuv is on the bacher. The new Sefer Mishpat HaMezuzah Amud Reish Mem Beis also is convinced that there's no chiyuv on the manayil. Which who? The Rashiva, the Mashkiach, the manayil, the building manager. No one's living there. So you have to realize what it boils down to is a suffix, not only who's chayiv, but maybe there's no chiyuv. Maybe it's like a hospital, there's no chiyuv. It could be that there's no one that's chayiv. So because of all this, I think it's fair to say, if someone follows the Betzina Rav, Vadi Yeshem Elismoich, but it seems the minig is that the yeshiva takes responsibility of putting up the mezuzahs, they pay for it, put it up, but most will not make a bracha. Because of the uncertainty, maybe there's no chiyuv at all, how can you make a bracha? Now don't forget, I thought originally, let the manal put up the mezuzah, make the bracha. In the worst scenario, it's the chiyuv of the bacher, he's a shliach. He'll be a shliach for the bacha. But since there's a possibility that it's not a chiyuv at all, the safest course of action is find a different room to make a bracha on, but mezuzah on the dorm is the chiyuv on the yeshiva, and they should put it up below bracha. Camp is very similar, but one major difference, and this I know was done, mentioned when I began. A certain yeshiva came from their yeshiva, they rented a premises, a big campus, there was not one mezuzah on the entire campus. And they made a cheshbon, they're moving in Tuesday, whatever it is, they're moving out before the 31st day, on the 30th day, and there's no chiyuv. So even if you're a rental, but a rental less 30, there's no chiyuv. And the Bachim felt that was wrong, and I understood them. But they were wrong. Because if it's less than 30 days, you're no chiyuv. So maybe als chinuch, but it was a very, very expensive proposition. You put up mezuzah on the whole camp, and then you can't even take them down. What's going to be? So again, maybe there was a chinuch issue. They should have told the Bachrim. But in theory, if there's no the 31st day when the chiyuv is chal, if you're not there, you put them. I know people that have bungalows, half summers, and each one makes it sure it's less than 31 days, so they don't have a chiyuv mezuzah. So of course, chacham levi kach mitzvahs, but that would be a legitimate p'tur. Camp has a learning group, especially younger children, so it's not yomam v'layla, that's for sure. It's like, not more than 45 minutes, In other words, maybe less than that. So that learning group room would be like a basic knesset, maybe even less than that. If it's only an hour a day, or 45 minutes a day, that taka would not be a chiyuv. But then again, there's a chinuch issue, the children are young, they come in, they see no mezuzah. But one thing we had, our camp, because we expanded, they built 4 big gazebos. Now gazebo, I can't explain the exact structure, but it's very comfortable, it's open to the air, it's airy, it's outdoor, it's a very geschmack place to learn, as a full Tzuras HaPesach and a full Chiyuv Mezuzah. So when we built it, they asked for Belsky, and Belsky said that it's not there, it's not the Shach's case of Boykat Erev, it's just a shear room, in and out. So maybe the shear is an hour and a half, but for an hour and a half, Yechayiv Mezuzah, he felt Yapata. He's right, because it's not the beis medrash that's mi Boykat Erev. But Lamaisa, after a few weeks, we noticed people are learning there all day. During Ben Starim, during Starim, again, the beis medrash was packed, it's more cozy, and he started making Einik Shabbos there. So then about we put up a mezuzah, because then it was Boika Ad Erev, maybe even Laila, Yom V'Laila, Mamish, it was that degree of a chiyuv, of course, like we said earlier, but Loi bracha. And the last question is an important question. I know someone that moved into a house, and he was putting up new mezuzahs, and he wanted to put up a mezuzah in the most meaningful way, in the most meaningful room. So he decided he's putting up the mezuzah with the bracha in his study. Now this is a year that Tamachacha Muflik. It wasn't like an office/study. Kulei Torah, only Svarim, nothing else. Svarim Steve, like they call it. This is where he put the mezuzah with the bracha. Lamaisa, I'm not so sure that was a good idea. Because let's think, if you have a room that's not an office, it's a real study, learning only, nothing else. No children playing there, so you have a big house. It's Kulei Kodesh Lashem. Does that room need a mezuzah? The Rambam's reason applies. The Lavush applies. It's only learning. Oh, so it's a Yachid, Taka Yachid, that might be a Chiyuv, but the main 2 reasons apply. An Oitzas Svarim, the Paiskim say, where you don't learn there, you taka pata, just in and out. But this is something he's there for a long time, but it's still a kodesh Lashem. And taka the Chutshani, Karelitz Amud Ayin Vav says, Chayde beis te prati, shiachti rak the Torah, v'tfila nechsha beis ha-medrash. You taka pata bracha. I also saw the Sefer Agab Alecha says this emphatically. The Chayvas Hador, Beis Nun Dalet, he says that's a regular chiyuv, and it's more than a beis ha-medrash. But the question is, what do you do with the Rambam? And then I found the treat for today, and that's the Das Noit of Chaim Kanievsky, Hilchos Mezuzah Amid Kuf Ayin Tes, which is a chiddush nifla, but it's very mistavra. The tour of the Rambam, of the Levush, of the Gemara, of Beischa, is when you have a room a house that's not yours, it's open to the public, and it's basically Kulei Kodesh Lashem. Basic Knesses, Beis HaMedrash, Shirum, Oitza, those are all good. But one room in your house, the Beis Shel Adam, Shemeshamish Oisil Limud, even though it's only Limud, is part of your bias. So he's coming back to Beisecha, and he's saying that Lamaisa, the most important Shimush in the house is learning. And then he goes weiter. He says, someone asked him, the Rambam that says that it's Beis Hashem. He says again, the Rambam is talking by a house that is Kulei Kodesh, it was built as a beis medrash. Your house is your house. You decided to make it a study, tomorrow you can make it into a playroom. So Reb Chaim said that it's not considered the Rambam's Beis Hashem, and he feels you could even make a bracha on it. So Lamaisa, we do have a svara, a new svara in this study that's considered part of the beis, but a yid has to do things properly. If so many poskim hold it's below bracha, so when you're making a chanukas abayis, find out the best room. It should have a room with a door, not a kitchen, and because we should understand that everything should be a shaila, and hopefully do the right thing. I'm going to talk to you all.
Shame Agency, Torah like you being a Shekher Smith for today's share. To have the great success of sponsoring a share, call Agency Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Chananya ben Akashem, Motzakadosh Baruch Hu L'Zachas, as Yisrael Lefika Hiblim Torah Mitzvah Shenema, Adonai Chofetz Amal Tzidka, Yagdol Torah B'Yadeh. Boy said this shul was made for learning also, so we're going to learn a little more. And eating.
Okay, today's shir was based on one word, beisecha, a beis medrash, a beis hakneses, no chiyuv, because lamaisa it is beis Hashem. The Rambam says it's beis Hashem. Levush says it's tzarchei gavoya. Some learn pshuta. It's a private. It has to be a private dwelling. It can't be owned by a kehila. So the three reasons Rashi holds it's not your private house. The Rambam holds beis Hashem. Levush holds it's a tashmish of kedusha, not chayil. When there's a chazan living in the shul, then we say that makes it into a beis dira. But a beis knesses, lamaisa today, if it's only used for davening, is not chayv mezuzah. There's no inyan to put up mezuzah. Many but knesses put it up because there is some learning going on. A beis medrash, however, lamaisa is different, as we'll soon see. But beis knesses, is put a beis medrash. The minig is to put up on a beis medrash b'lei bracha. Best would be if you make a bracha on a different room that's chayiv and have a mind to make it going on the beis medrash, like we did in our camp, from the dining room to the beis medrash. A shtibel is more of a chayiv because it's your house. And some taka hold when you put a mezuzah on a shtibel, you can make a bracha. The Rav's office or any office is also like a private chazan's dira and chayiv and a mezuzah. A washing room and a coffee room and a oitzah, a svarim should need a mezuzah. But the minig is not to make a bracha. As Nashim is also below bracha, even though someone holds it's like a beis knesset and pata. A simcha hall is the responsibility of the caterer. A beis medrash in yeshiva has more of a chiyuv mezuzah, but it's still below bracha. The concept of a dining room is a chayiv with a bracha because that's the ma'isa. The eating is not the beis Hashem, it's not the levush. A shiurim that's used just an hour or so is not chayiv at all. The minute is to put it up. Girls' school is like boys' school. Classroom should have a mezuzah because it's there from 9 to 3 and they keep stuff there. A play group is a regular part of the house. If it's your house, you chayiv mezuzah. It's that. It's like you have a store in your house. A room of limudei chayil should be chayiv mezuzah. A gym should have a mezuzah. A dorm, the minig is that the yeshiva puts it up b'lei bracha. A camp, like any other rental within 30 days, is not chayiv. Learning groups in a once a day or 1 hour a day is not chayiv mezuzah, but the minig is to put up b'lei bracha. A gazebo should have a mezuzah if it's used throughout the day and night. A svarim shtib, a study, definitely needs a mezuzah, maybe even with a bracha, Chaim says, but definitely needs a mezuzah. And basically, when you have a shaila, ask and do the right thing.